Well, hello there. Good morning, my time. Good day, good evening, good afternoon, good night, to wherever you may be in the world. And I'd just like to say thank you for joining me here in my little arty corner of the internet. I appreciate every single one of you, the likes, the comments, the subscriptions. Those who return, those who are new here, you are all most welcome. And I'm very grateful that you pop along to have a look to see what I'm up to. Yesterday, I started very belatedly designing my winter cards, Christmas cards, Yuletide cards, winter solstice cards, whatever you wish to call it. I know there are lots of other celebrations around the same time of year in different countries, different faiths, and so on. But me, I live in the UK, and there's a long tradition of holly and ivy and mistletoe and greenery being used and, linked with light. We could get into all of these things, but we're not going to. So yesterday you saw this at the stage where I'd basically just drawn it in black and white. I'd added the print arms in a sage green there, and I'd added the gold highlights. Well, since then, I've tried a couple of things out. Well, I've done a couple of things. I've used chalk pastels for the major part of colouring, both Carbothellos and Carbatellos, Thellos, I don't know, and Conte pastels, and used a Tortillon just to work them into the paper so they don't smudge so easily. But I've also used a couple of chameleon fine liners because it was nigh on impossible. Or no, it wouldn't have been nigh on impossible, but it's nearly 7:30 here in the morning. It's still dark out, and I've been awake since about 4 o'clock. So, and I've got work to do today after this. So I used fine liners to colour in the green around these leaves and underneath the central panel, and I did pop some red in, some red berries. Excuse me, because I just thought that would it just needed it, I think, and I think that little splash of red really helps. I've also gone back over the black lines around the stars and added some dots coming from the sides of the stars. If you can see, if I pick it up, perhaps you can catch the glimmer and glints. Because I felt that needed a bit more. And also the chalk pastels can dull black lines down, and I wanted them, they looked odd here. Everywhere else looked fine. Sort of like, it doesn't matter where you've got added shadows and so on. But I also added another layer of gold paint because, again, that gold seemed to have been dulled down a lot more than the rest. It may have just been an optical illusion, but I just thought, no, let's just brighten it up. So I brightened up the gold before I added the extra black lines, and I've put my little signature at the bottom. Now then, I was thinking, I love chalk pastels, I love the colour they get, but everything always looks a bit dusty. And yesterday it just came to me, I thought, oh, there's got to be a way of making this, sealing this in, because if I'm going to give it a card, I don't want people to get mucky fingers if they touch it. I could use like a jelly roll glaze pen, but goodness knows how many pens I'd need to cover that. And so, like many of you, I'm sure, I've been watching the 12 Days of Zentangle, and they use Mod Podge, and I haven't got Mod Podge in my stash. In fact, I must probably have plenty in my stash, but where things are is its own spelunking kind of expedition to get things. But I knew that I had a couple of mediums that I could use to seal this in and perhaps give a reflective coat. One of them is this. It's multi-medium gloss. This happens to be from Ranger. It's a gloss medium. It's an acrylic medium. I know I've got bottles of this from, it's probably De La Rowney or Winsor and Newton. It's the orange ones. And you can get them in many different brands. And they're a varnish, they're water-based though, so I was a bit wary about using it on that tile. And I was also wary because I didn't know whether it would move the pastels or affect. I know that it can, any watercolors, water soluble. I thought, I could shift those. So that was one option. The other one was something called, and I have distress glaze because it's a micro glaze, but my understanding is this is like the micro glazes, micro polishes you get for cars and other surfaces. I'm almost positive it smells. I mean, the gloss medium doesn't. This has a solventy, chemically smell to it. It's not overpowering. I have to say that, but it does. But this you just rub in gently with a soft cloth, or I used a piece of kitchen towel yesterday. You can use a blending tool. I could use the foam side of a piece of cut and dry foam. And I just wanted to see what happens. So remember those, if you saw yesterday's, you'll know that I showed a couple of tiles or pieces of paper I'd done where I was testing out dip pens and practicing drawing with them and getting the feel of them once again, because it's been many years since I've used them, and trying to work out which nibs I want, because I've got a big selection here, or which nibs will work for me, and more importantly whether they'll work on the paper I'm working with, because they can be a bit finicky where I'm concerned. So with this one, which was the bronze one, I put down some areas of, I'll just put the light on, that might help, areas of different kinds of media. So this purple bit here is Carbothello chalk pastel. I just put it in the corner and blended it out. The orange is Conte chalk pastel. Here I used some tinted charcoal. This is the matte graphite pencil, equivalent to any graphite pencil. Here I used Ecoline inks, and here I used some more of the tinted charcoal. And then if I tilt this, hopefully you might see it's got a shiny finish as compared to another side. And this is the one I used the matte medium on. Now the only problem I have with matte medium really is the brush strokes, because I'm not very good at applying it, and I have got some unevenness, but that would be sorted by doing another coat. The first coat is the one where I have to be the most delicate, because I don't want to shift any of these, and it didn't shift any of them. Well, not in any noticeable way. If anything, the tinted charcoal has actually shown up clearer than it was before. So that was a pleasing experiment. I thought, oh, that's great, because where I've added these, I've added as much as I would have as I have on this particular tile. So I thought, okay, that's the multi-medium. Oh, and it warps the paper, because this paper's quite thin and it is water-based, so it's one of those things. So this one is with microglaze, and if I tilt it, there is it's hard to see the difference, but there's a very slight sheen to the paper. The paper's got a lovely silky smooth finish to it. Now I don't think I'd use microglaze on anything that needed to be archival, but anything that needs to be archival is likely to be framed anyway, so that wouldn't be an issue for any of these. But again, I tried different things out. So I've got Carbothello, Conte over here. I've discovered I've got some General's pastels, chalk pastels in my stash. Where did they come from? Who knows? I haven't got a clue. Matte graphite over here, tinted charcoal here, and Ecoline watercolour, as I did with the other one. I did a lot of Ecoline watercolour here because I really wanted to see how, because the water soluble really flows, so the acrylic, the gold acrylic, repels it. And none of those shifted either, and if anything the colours were brought out even more and became more intense with it. So I mean, there was some coloration on the tissue after I'd used it. My biggest fear was that I was going to smear everything everywhere and end up with a mess. but that's not the case. And I think it's going to be fine. I think it just removes the very surface layer. So I'm going to be extremely brave. I'm going to use the microglaze on this one. So I have just got a piece of kitchen towel here. I'm going to wrap it around my finger. You need the tiniest amount of microglaze. So this pot I've had it for years. I don't use it often, but I'm going to start on the edge just to double check that everything's going to be okay. You can see some of it comes off, but I'm not worried about tiny bits coming off. As long as there's stuff left behind, I'm fine with that. And it's just a question of blending it in over everything. The lovely thing about this, I use this when I do, actually it is picking up quite a bit of the pastels and so on, but there's enough left that I'm quite happy with that. But it actually makes the surface waterproof as well. And because it's not water-based, it's brilliant for things like distress ink, which are affected by or can be shifted and moved with matte medium. Just a centre bit to do. You can tell when you've covered an area because it becomes more slippery and slidey. If I start coughing, it's because that chemically smell will set my asthma off. It doesn't often, but it's known to occasionally. So I've got a layer on there entirely, so I'm going to just take a clean side of this piece of kitchen towel and just give it a buff. And the some has come off. That's just the excess microglaze. And there we are. It's sealed. It's got this lovely waxy finish to it, and it is less chalky. Some of the white highlights that I put here have faded a bit. I'm fine with that. I'm quite happy that the darker around the edge has faded a little, but ultimately most of the colour is there. And of course the bits that haven't been affected are the gold hasn't, the black lines haven't, and the fine liner. So I think that's worked out quite nicely. So this is now complete. I'll try and tilt it so you can see that the gold is just as sparkly as ever. It hasn't dulled that down at all. And the colours are pretty much true to how they were. So I'm really, really chuffed with that. So something you might like to try. Okie dokes. This piece of paper, can you see the faint blue on that? It's because I coloured another tile this morning with some blues. I used speckled egg all over. Speckled egg is a warmer blue than the others, or a warmer blue, palish. Just put a nice tone on there. And as this, this is it Imagine? No, it's not Imagine. It's the botanical watercolour paper. It's quite white. It stays quite true, but it's a bit of a warmer feel. But then round the edge I added Stormy Sky, which is a bluer grey. And right round the edge I used not tumbled glass, broken china, which is a beautiful warm blue, like the blue you get on old-fashioned china, you know, vintage china. There's that lovely warm kind of blue you get. I'm not sure if it's called a Delft blue, but yeah. So I was toying, or have been toying with the idea of creating small tiles to go in the centre, lifted up to give some dimension, and that could be actually a lot of fun. So shall I for this one? Yeah, why not? So now you're going to have to bear with, aren't you, as I cut things up and what have you. All right, I reckon 1 inch by 1 inch would be too small. 2 inches by 2 inches would be most probably a little bit on the big side. So I'm going to go 1.5 inches. No, I'm going to go 1 3/4 inches, which is about 4.5 centimetres by 4.5 centimetres. It's, you know, half a millimetre shorter in size most probably. I'll keep the rest of those bits. Okay, so I have this, and I am going to colour it with Distress inks. Now I've thought about it, so the rattling you can hear is me getting my Distress inks out. I'm pulling stuff out. I think I'm going, oh, I've got green. Now I'm not going to do green. I'm going to stick, I am going to stick some monochrome here. Just put those tiles, other tiles out the way. And for this one, I want a bit more colour on this one than the others. Just pop my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. Always a good plan. So I'm just picking up some speckled egg here on the cut and dry foam, hopefully. So I have a, and this is bringing out the texture of the paper. So there are two sides to the botanical paper. One has this texture, the other is very smooth, the reverse. What I'm doing here is I'm just running my fingernails along the edge just to push down the edge where it's been cut, because I can feel it sticking upwards. It also distresses it just a little bit. And I'm also going to add some broken china along the edge of this, because I really do want a distinct edge on this. And I'd like to colour right along the edge. I don't want white paper showing when I mount it. So just to make sure that's the case, I'm just going to go along the edge. So that there's no or very little white showing. I'm just having a good look here myself. That's lovely. So that'll make a lovely centre spot, I think. Though I could do with that hint of stormy sky as well. So it matches the other one just a little bit, but it's deeper in colour, which is going to be absolutely fine and dandy, to be honest. Because I think I've decided that for this and most probably others, I'm likely to use sorry about the noise, but I tidy up as I go, because I don't have a lot of space, and as cluttered as I am, I still like to keep it quite tidy where I'm working. So that should work out nicely. Yeah, so I think I'll use the eco lines to actually what am I trying to say? To add colour, and possibly just either charcoal tends to spread a long way. It's probably the chalk pastels to add the dimension. So I've got an 03 pen here. And I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm going to draw a border. I don't need to do a very outside border, because although I could find there's an 01. So let me go around this in an 01. It's going to be a bit wobbly and wonky. Because it's first thing in the morning. And I haven't done any drawing yet, other than outlining the stars. So that looks quite nice. And then I'm going to find roughly halfway down. I'm going to split this into quarters again, like I did with the other one. It's a bit like a window, but it's not going to be. And then what I'm going to do with this, put my 01 out the way, is I think today we're going to have some mistletoe. So I'm going to draw all the stems in first. So I'm just drawing lines that have a bit of a curve at the end where they meet those the division lines, the lines dividing the square up. It's not perfect, it works. This is how I draw mistletoe. It doesn't mean you have to. But I put 2 berries close together, overlapping, and then the actual mistletoe leaf is sort of a curvy teardrop shape, almost like a paisley shape, or one of the versions of flax in Zentangle. So that's my mistletoe so far. So I'm going to do this, and I have taken it out so the leaves actually touch. The sides of this bounding box. Got that. Well, these are going to overlap, which is fine. The fact they're all slightly different isn't an important thing, I don't think. If I wanted them all exactly the same, I'd draw this on the computer digitally, but I'm not. I'm taking my time to enjoy the process of drawing. So there we are. With that, I've got a tile that's very, very similar to, or a pattern that is in keeping, I suppose, with yesterday's holly one. What I am going to do is draw a line, partly tracing or echoing or repeating that curve there. I'm using an 01 pen instead of the 03, and I'm just finishing it with a couple of dots just to suggest it carries on. Got some very squashed leaves here, but this will do. This will do for mistletoe. So I've got that, and that, and I am going to put just some little dots in the berries because they need to be. So that's my central motif. Now it will sit there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a pencil just to trace around. Because I want to know where I'm going to put it afterwards, roughly. So I've got that. But what I'm going to do here, if I can actually get my hand to work, is I'm going to draw a fairly wide outlined border so that it doesn't have to be perfect, because when I attach this I can have it a little bit off center. I am going to remove that central square a little bit because I don't want those lines to show particularly. Okay, let's get rid of that bit of pencil. Now, Do I want to do gold or shall I do a silver background? Silver would look lovely with blue, but gold does as well. I'm going to stick with gold. So I'm just shaking up my ink here. I'm going to get my brushes down. Okay, and I'm going to use a fairly large brush here today because, oh gosh, I put a brush in upside down. That was naughty. Naughty, naughty, naughty. Look for a nice brush I'd like to use. I'm fussy about my brushes. I've got a lot of brushes, but not many of them I actually really enjoy using. Got another one I put in upside down. That one's bent now. Why did I do that? Okay, let me have a look. I have, not fussed on those. I've got more, but I'm going to make you, right. Let me have a look. Use this. This is oh gosh, that's water everywhere. Not watching what I was doing. I put things out of the way because I am prone to being rather clumsy, to say the least. So I've got a flat brush here. It's a flat shader. It's a De La Rowney Graduate, which is perfect for what I'm going to use here. It's suitable for sort of acrylics, watercolours, and in fact it'll be perfect for this because it's flat. Hopefully I can get some ink out. Sorry, you have to put it with me reaching across because I need to pick the stopper out of it. Now I could put some drops into a palette, but for the sake of this, I don't have to fill the whole of this square in either. Because that square over there will fill it in. Well, I do want to put enough ink down that it will have a lovely glossy edge. And the alternative is to use something like metallic card, which is easily purchased. I can't find mine. I looked for some not long ago and I could only find the rose gold one, and I really don't want rose gold on this. It's the case where, like with everything, I put it somewhere safe and I can never find where safe is. And then when I decide to give up and order more, suddenly it appears in the place where I was looking. Like with the dip pen nibs. So I just go, oh well, ho hum. I guess I need some labelled storage. One day I might get round to it. One day maybe. And while this is drying, which must be a bit tedious for you to watch, but if it does turn out a bit patchy, I can always add another layer. But I think this might be okay actually. I think it might need some more down that edge that I've just been down along. Which is fine. Yeah. I'm using the acrylic ink, but any gold medium would work. If you've got some in your stash, use that. Even a jelly roll pen, because you could attach the square and then go around it with an aura. I just want a patch of gold, really. So she's saying, oh, I'm not going to colour it all in, and I'm really not going to. I can see where it's a little bit on the uneven side. I'm just going to, this side it's quite thick towards the edge, so I'm just going to Soften that up a bit. And the same here. And get straighter edge. And there we are, that's that done. So just pop the brush in the water for a moment before the ink dries on it, because that's not a good plan. And that should then sit nicely over it. Yeah, that will. I'll give it a chance to dry. I'm also going to make a noise as I clean my brush. My apologies for that. And I shall pop that in the, oh, not in the water pot, Angela, come on. Head on. Okay, so I want to do something with this where I have the background perhaps a little bit darker than the foreground. So that means I'm going to just disappear a moment because I did not bring all of my media out with me. Oh no, we didn't do that. And I'm going to go and get my eco lines. I think. Eco lines, or yeah, eco lines. So I'll bring those into my little plastic palette with me. Oh, I have got blue on there. I didn't need to bring the, forgot about that. Didn't need to bring the others with me. But I am going to pick up a brush. Let's see. Can't see my favourite size there. It's got to be somewhere else then. That'll be okay. So I want, what's a lovely blue, I think, for the background. So this, actually, this is a turquoise green, but it's quite a bluey green that I'm going to use, and I think that'd be quite nice. I think it may just tone in with the background quite nicely. I've just added some water to it to tone it down just a little, because I don't want it too dark, but I want it to be a bit darker than it currently is, I think. If I make a batch of that up, then these squares will be pretty much the same. What I am going to do though is I am going to just take a little hint of a darker blue and just pop it in the corner at the top and perhaps underneath. Not sure what this one is. I think it's Prussian blue. Okay, and let's do the next one. I prefer to do them one square at a time because it's easier to keep things consistent within that one square. So by the time I got around everything, no doubt I'll have had drying or different things. Picking up some of that darker blue just to add some, because this is watercolour paper. This colour will just flow as it's meant to. So, and of course it takes water really well, water-based media, because that's what it's designed to do. So that'll work nicely. Let's pick some of that darker blue up and just drop it in and let it do its thing. Where I've actually put some of this ink into, oh wait, it's overspilled into the other areas. I'm not too worried because I know that it will react and mix again with whatever I use on, you know, for the mistletoe leaves. So this is just very quick. Yeah, it's just getting that lovely background colour and just that dark blue. Which one did I just do? This one, I think. Because I've moved this slightly, I haven't got a clue. Just go in and retouch some others where I've perhaps not got enough of the colour in or missed some little gaps out. The lovely thing about water-soluble media is they are quite forgiving. I think that's nice because it also lifts it up from this edge, this border. Okie dokes. Not a lot of drawing going on here today, lots of this. All right, for the, I don't want grass green. I'm hoping this is, yeah, I think I'll use the bronze green for the mistletoe leaves. Yeah. Again, take some water, and I'm just going to add some water just to get a little puddle going here so it doesn't dry quite so quickly on the palette. And I have plenty on my brush. It's probably added just a bit too much water here because it's quite pale, but once it's dry I can go back and add more, so that's not a problem or an issue really. I think I've used the back side of this paper rather than the front side. Just realised I think with this botanical paper the front side of the paper is actually the smoother side. Not that it really matters very much. There we are, and of course I do need to do the stems, so I'm just going to darken my, I don't know why I do mistletoe this colour, because it's more the colour of dried mistletoe than fresh. Fresh mistletoe is actually quite a beautiful green. It's not a blue green, but it's a yellow green. Or green, you know, more of a yellow tone. It's not a bright yellow green like this, but it is rather lovely. This is just really quick and simple. And then for the berries, I'm just going to add just a tiny drop of a yellow colour in there, yellowish colour. And I will actually, as it dries, it will go to practically back to white, but there's just enough there that it'll be fine. I do want to darken the stems a bit, so I'll have a bit more of that, and perhaps a bit of the Prussian blue to get a darker green going on. That's nice. Perhaps just a little bit down from the top, and hopefully it's damp enough that these edges will just blend one into another. I'm not looking for, you know, botanical illustration accuracy here. That is not my skill, as much as I may love to have it. And it's true, I would love that. But drawing I'm not so bad on. But this is very stylized. So think Art Nouveau with the very simple colours, or Arts and Crafts, William Morris and so on. It's that suggestion of it, it's creating a pattern. So that's quite nice. Let's have a look at this, because this will be dry now. And then if I pop this, which I've bent, but that's fine, it's because it's damp, on the top, that will give a nice golden outline, won't it? I think so. I think that works quite nicely. Okie dokes, I've finished with the eco lines, so I shall just throw them to one side a moment, excuse the bangs and crashes. And I will attach this, even though it's damp, to the background. And I'm just using some glue. This just happens to be Tombow Mono, because it's really nice and strong. I haven't put it right to the very edge because I don't need to. Hopefully the pressure will just spread that I put when I put it down will spread the glue out that little bit towards the edges. I'll just wiggle it a little bit just to make sure. And then I've got a little bit of wiggle time just to adjust where that is. Another reason not to put it right to the edge, otherwise I'd have glue showing. And that's close enough to central for me. So there we go. Look. Now I do think I'm going to put a very thin band of gold around there, possibly. And I am thinking about putting a background pattern of, you know, Zentangle or others behind that, behind the mistletoe, but I'm not entirely sure at the moment. So before I spill the water and knock brushes and everything over, let me just pop them to one side, because I now need to tackle this outside. I'll start to tackle it. So I'll bring my tray of pens and bits over again. So I want to draw an outside border, and I'm going to make it a little bit wider than I did in the first tile. And I'm not bothered with perfection here, really. As close as I can get to equal sized borders. And if they're a bit wibbly wobbly, I don't mind. So that works nicely, and I'll get my O1, hopefully. Okay. And I am going to draw a line around the gold, not at the edge of the gold. I'm just leaving a tiny, tiny border. I'm trying to keep it as equal distant as I can. You know, the gap between the two about the same, you know, the same all the way along. But it's hand drawn, so there's going to be some wibbliness. As long as it's close enough, I'll be happy with that. There we go. So there's that. So this background, I think it's got to be watercolor paper, because it's got that texture. It doesn't feel as thick as the other one. It could just be an illusion. And I'm going to put a thicker line outside of that. So I've used the O1 and I'm now using the O3. Now I'm trying to think what I'd like to put in this border. My mind is thinking of Diva Dance, but in the circular version, possibly. I could divide it up into a grid pattern, because that'd be quite nice, but I think the Diva Dance would be quite, it would darken that down, and then I think the colours in the middle would be lifted. So I think I'm going to give that a go. The nice thing about having the panel is, if I'm happy with this panel, if I mess everything else up, I can cut this out and reuse it on a new tile. So nothing's, you know, I wanted to put it there before I did anything else, because it will help me see what I'm doing. Now I've got choices. I could do it in black, or I could choose a fine liner of a colour that would tone in, but no, I'm not going to. I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to do Diva Dance, rock and roll in my kind of way, because I think everybody draws it quite differently. I'm beginning to wonder, perhaps I should have used a different sized pen for this, but I'm going with the O3. I stop every now and again and I put these lumps in. Essentially because I can. And I'm going to have these tucking under the borders. Because that would work out. Now I'm only going to do the one here, perhaps the second one. I do work quite quickly, but don't forget that drawing is my job nowadays. And I am aware I need to get back to my job soon. So I'll need a little lumpy thing there. But this is a nice way to warm my hand and eye up, to get my hand-eye coordination working. It's always nice when you get to that point that you don't have to go all the way around. It's easy to go and add the blobs in. And I am calling them blobs. Oh, that's a gonking great big one. So let's do this one. We've hit the other side, but I'm still going to do one or two more because I particularly like to finish Diva Dance off with a couple of plain auras, as they're called. So this one is one of them. I just think it helps to separate one from another, and you can use it to even the shape out a bit as well. So there's one. I think that'll work nicely, and once I add perhaps some colour, and for this I will use water-soluble media, the Ecolines, because I think I'll want to shadow underneath this inner section and here as well. And if I use chalk pastels, it's going to it will dull the black down, but it can make a bit of a mess as well because there's going to be so much ink here. So again, I'm just going to start with a bit of a spiral, the centre bit of the spiral. I'm going to move the line far enough around so that I can add a couple of lumpy bumps, go back, aura them. I tend to stop in about the same kind of place on each round. It's not essential, it's, you know, it's personal choice where you do that. And I'm just going to thicken that up a bit because I'm making a bit of a pig's ear. And then add some more. I think I'll have one there. This pen, the ink from this pen is spreading out a bit more than usual because I haven't allowed the distress ink time to fully dry for it to sink in. I think it's got something like glycerine or some other medium in it that does take time to dry into the paper. And I do tend to forget that the pens can appear thicker than they usually would. All's fine and well. Pop one in there. These do end up looking a bit like fanciful roses. No two are identical. I'm going to pop one of those in there, pop another one there. In fact, I think I'll just colour all of that black because I was getting a tiny little spot. And I'm just going to do another round, I think. A couple of bumps in to give an interesting edge, especially down here because it got really quite straight. And that's the second one done. So I'm going to leave this here for now, and I'll carry on doing these later on, perhaps, or in a while the video is being processed, sort of, except I have to, it's complicated. Oh, I've just thought I could add alcohol markers to the backgrounds as well. That could be interesting. Talking out loud. So I want to fill all of this with Diva Dance. So I'm going to carry on doing that off camera, and I'll come back when I finish. That's the best plan. All right, so I'll see you in a little while for you, quite a while for me, but see you in a bit. Well, here I am back again, just going to finish off this very last gap here. And I actually think I've made a good decision with this. I was worried that it might be a bit too overpowering with all the black that's in it, but actually I think it really helps to set off the colours in the central motif, and of course that gold as well. I do have a fondness for black backgrounds. When I was a teacher, the notice boards in my labs, because I was based in a number of labs in my time teaching, would be painted black. First time I asked for that, the caretakers who did the painting looked at me and said, "Are you sure?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely positive." And they went, "Okay," because they'd been told to ask me what I wanted, and what I said was done. And afterwards they said, "Are you really sure about this?" I said, "Oh yeah, just wait and see." And of course within a day or so I'd got displays up and posters and all kinds of things that were really, really bright coloured. And the black really showed them off nicely, gave really beautiful borders around them. And they even came to me and said, "Well, we thought you were mad, but actually now we've seen what you've done. That looks fantastic." And I think that's the same kind of thing here. I'm not saying this is fantastic, but what I'm saying is that dark, very dramatic Diva Dance really does help set off the colours of the central motif. It doesn't detract from it, it helps to lift it while adding interest at the same time. So you might notice that the Diva Dances all look a bit different. I've got, on this side I seem to have more short and tall, or narrow, short and tall, no, not short and tall, narrow and tall bumps, and over here they seem a lot more spread out, but I'm not bothered about that. But I found myself finding different ways to draw them. Sometimes I'd draw, if I do it on here, I'd draw the bumps as I was going, so you get one like this, and then I'd add another one here. And then at other times I'd find myself drawing the bumps in on the Artwyrd line and then go back and fill that in. I think both ways work fine and well. I think there were times where my lines also went out a bit far and I decided to add the bump on the previous line. But they all work out eventually in exactly the same way. It gives you the same kind of feeling. It's just whatever works for you, the methodology. And yeah, so I'm quite happy with that. I'm not sure whether there are any dark, sort of white spots in the black. The light's a bit bright here, and even my glasses on, I can't get my head in the position I want to. But I think that's a fairly good start. So I think all that needs to be done is this ink needs to be left to dry, because there's a lot of it, and the distress ink needs to be left to dry. And I can think then about how I'm going to add some colour to this border, or at least shadow. And I'm tempted to use as I've said, the Ecoline inks or maybe alcohol markers, just to add that shadow in. I think the inks would be better because I can spread the colour out easier and fade it out. And perhaps to bring out some of the shadows where these diva dances overlap each other, because that could add some interest there. I also am going to decide what I do with this narrow border here. Whether I add another gold border here and another one round the edge. I'm not entirely sure. I think that might take away from the one in the centre. But as I'm looking at the one in the centre, I do think that I may very well just go here and I'm going to bolden this border because it just doesn't look right to have, it needs black up against it too, in my mind. To my mind rather. I think that would work a fair bit better here. And of course if I go over on the acrylic ink it's going to take time to dry. If it does at all. And if it's a bit wibbly wobbly I'm not going to worry too much. But I just think that it's only when another part is completed you can go, right, yeah, okay, that looks a bit odd, so I can go and add to this. Thing is, it's better to be sparing in things like borders and so on, I suppose, and the distance between them, because you can always go back and thicken them. But it's just hard if you're working in permanent ink like this. Or any kind of colour, I suppose, other than pencil or something that's meant to be erased. It can be difficult to go back and undo what you have done. I've done this and it's looking a bit on the messy side, so I think I'm going to, I may very well take it all the way out here. Because I think that's where that second gold line will come in. And I'll be able to work out where that needs to go because it's where all of these lines stop. But I can't put that gold line in, or I won't put that gold line in until this is completely dry. So that's fine. I think that'll work quite nicely. And I will use a dip pen to do that with. So, because this was looking a bit scrappy after I'd done that. Because I know that with a dip pen or a fine brush I can get a nice line, a fine line there, which will be great. So this is where I'm just about to end this for today. I hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen. It's given you some ideas, or if you're going to draw along, that's fine too. Now that really makes the middle stand out, doesn't it? That's a heck of a block of black, but that's fine. I quite like that as well. So in fact, this could be something interesting to do because I do have black paper. And that could be fun. I must probably have black cards somewhere. Must probably black paper, sketchbook paper, and that could be quite nice to put that central tile on that black, and then draw here in inks, whether they're, you know, whether I use a metallic gel pen or whatever. That could be quite interesting and fun, I think. So there we are. Not quite finished. I've still got shadowing to do. I've still got the edges to put on. I still need to do something in the centre just to help to lift things up. It may be that I'll need to darken the blue background that little bit and add some more colour to the mistletoe leaves. but I will face that when I get to it. For now, I'm just going to say thank you very much for joining me today. I really do hope you've enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you again, fingers crossed, tomorrow. Though I will say this, I may not have a video tomorrow because I have a number of things that I do on a Sunday, and I also need to get the last couple of templates done. So I'm going to be working deuced hard today to get at least 2 inked in, and then I've just got 2 to do by Monday morning America time, which is fine, which is, you know, sort of like Monday midday by me. So I've got some leeway, but we'll see. It may be that my conscience means that I've got to focus on getting that done, or the urge to get it done. And right, that's done. And we've already decided on a theme for the next book. So yes, so I'll be repeating all of this again. I need to manage my time better, I think. Anyway, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, find time to be creative. For now, bye-bye.